All right on time. We are go for lunch.
Good evening and welcome to the Thursday, October 3rd, 2024 meeting of the Henrietta Town Board. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Here.
Councilmember Blanca,
Here.
Councilmember Barley,
Here.
Councilmember Stafford,
Here.
Supervisor Schultz.
Here. We'll begin the meeting with a silent prayer followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes of the preceding meeting?
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I make a motion that we approve the minutes of the preceding town board meeting from September 11th, 2024.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Blanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. First up, we have special use permit application number 2024-032. Rock Personal Training LLC, 50 Methodist Hill Drive, Suite 1300, to operate a private personal training facility. Do we have representative from the applicant here? Introduce yourself, your relationship to the project, and tell us a little bit about it.
Sure. My name is Joe Delgado. I'm the owner of the company Rock Personal Training LLC. What I'm looking to do is put a personal training facility in that spot with also a emphasis on employee wellness, where it's not only serve the companies in the greater Rochester area, but we'll have a brick and mortar shop right there for personal training in the Henrietta area, along with some small group training and a couple different group exercise classes. We'll also offer seminars on nutrition, wellness, and fitness. I just think it's a great location because of the businesses that are located around it.
And do you have a current location, or is this your first?
This is going to be a
brick
brand
and
new
mortar?
location, yeah.
If somebody were to ask me, what's the age group range appropriate to your business, what would be the answer?
Right now, the demographic for the mean age is right around 35 to 50, predominantly female. We do have the offshoots. I have a kids fitness certification, so I offer some kids fitness classes out of there. There are some athletes that come through. I have done some training in the past with clubs like the Genesee Figure Skating Club. RIT, I did some work with the female hockey team, but the demographic is right around that age range. I also do a lot of work with seniors. I've got senior fitness classes there. I also go out into the community and do some senior classes as well. But so to answer your question, we work with all types of age groups, but usually that's really what the main area is.
Might be appropriate for you to put some information in our senior center.
I would love to do that.
Thank you.
Yes.
Joe, does diet come with this, Joe?
Yes, it's a fully comprehensive program. So once you pay the price to train with one of the trainers, you get everything from nutrition counseling to rest, cardio prescription. You get weight training prescription, flexibility. It's a completely comprehensive program.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
How many employees do you anticipate having?
So I'll probably start off with right around 7, and we'll probably max out somewhere between 12 and 15, hopefully more towards a 15, because that means the demand was there, because they are hired with demand for the training sessions.
Thanks.
Sorry, I was having network connectivity issues, but I was able to resolve them, so, yeah. Okay. And which 50 Methodist, so that's the one, is this the old court location?
No, this is across the street from the court location.
Across the street from the court, okay. Okay, yeah, I know which one it is now, yep. My company used to, they were our landlords for many, many years. They still are the landlords. When they sold the company, I just no longer work there. I retired.
So you think.
I failed retirement. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of other questions. Anyone else on the board? Anyone from the public? Either in person or online? And hearing and seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing for special use permit application number 2024-032 Rock Personal Training LLC. Does anyone wish to make a motion?
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to make a motion to accept special permit application number 2024-032. Rock Personal Training LLC, 50 Methodist Hill Drive, Suite 1300, to operate a private personal training facility.
Second?
Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca.
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Congratulations. If you email me at supervisor@henrietta.org, I can hook you up with the Chamber of Commerce. They can arrange a ribbon cutting for when you're ready to open your doors. You know, maybe give you some help in trying to get the word out to the news and such. So again, that's supervisor@henrietta.org. Nothing else. Eric's got my email. Thank you. Next up, we have special use permit application number 2024-033, Rock Dispensary and Hydroponics LLC, 324 Jefferson Road. The agenda says to modify the previously approved special use permit. However, we elected to do it as a whole new permit because our understanding from New York State is the dispensary and the micro business should be two separate entities. Therefore, two separate, I realize it's the same building owner, but it should be two separate special use permits, one specifically governing the dispensary and one specifically governing the micro business.
Okay.
So that's to allow the operation of a cannabis micro business, specifically in allowing the storage and testing of live cannabis plants. So introduce yourself, your relationship to the project, and say a little bit about what they're looking to do.
Mr. Supervisor and the Town Board, John Miglerini from Rock Dispensary and Hydroponics, 324 Jefferson Road, Rochester, New York, 14623. I'm one of the partners in this company. I'm here tonight, as the supervisor said, to modify our special use permit to also be the micro part of our business. In this facility, we're just going to be storing plants that are brought in if we do purchase them from other growers in New York State. Because the best is to not have new plants in with plants that are already being growing and harvesting in the process. In some cases, the plants that are brought in may have diseases or insects or other issues, and we don't want to put those with the same plants that are growing and harvesting. There'll be no cultivating or processing at this facility. It's just going to be a storage location.
John, how many employees are you anticipating for this facility?
6 to 10.
So when you say we presently have a special use permit for this location, who is we?
Rochester Dispensary and Hydroponics.
Right, so again, from New York State, do you have the micro business approval yet?
Yes. And the dispensary approval is gonna be done on Tuesday.
Okay. And they're allowing it, because I thought somewhere it said they had to be two separate entities.
Two separate entities, but they can be in the same building.
Right, okay. So who owns the one and who owns the other?
Me, Bob Levesque and, Bo Clinton own both of them.
That's my point. So I'm not clear how that complies with New York State law. Because I thought New York State law, it had to be different ownership entities from microbusiness and dispensary.
The license that they gave us was both licenses on one, the dispensary and the micro business that I had sent over to you a couple of months ago. And we went to the OCM and they said that that was fine. I mean, it is in two different locations. I mean, the grow facility is over in the regional market and then the dispensary is on Jefferson Road.
Right, I guess, I mean, they're the ones who have to approve it. I'll just note that if they come back and say, essentially audit and say, well, wait a minute, you can't do this, just to be clear, your special use permit is predicated on you following the New York State rules. So like I said, if they make a determination that you can't own both the dispensary and the micro business, you're gonna have to make a decision as to which one you sell, what you get out of, so.
Understood.
But again, ultimately, that is a decision of, and for all I know, they've changed it and just not updated it.
Change a lot of stuff.
They-
We don't know about it
That's like
first.
them, but for, like I said, for a while, they were saying that you can't, if you're a micro business, you can't also be the same owners of a dispensary, although they also say that micro businesses then can sell their merchandise at dispensaries, so who knows?
That's what I was gonna say, from what I heard today was, hey, you couldn't own two, a dispensary and a micro business, but a micro business could be a dispensary, basically.
It's a micro business with a dispensary added onto it.
Right, but so the issue is then you're saying that your current, so what do you have over at the, what do you have
Regional
over at the regional market? What's that?
That's the micro business.
Okay. So then are they saying that you can have the micro business in two locations?
They're saying that we can store in the dispensary as long as no cultivating or processing of the product is done in there.
Ah. Okay. That's not what the resolution, that's not how it was explained to me, what was going on.
So your original special use permit was approved back in 2023.
Mhm.
What took so long?
The state OCM.
Yeah.
Okay.
They are not fast. Okay, so we're gonna need to. We are not gonna do the resolution now. I'm gonna need some time to rework that because my understanding, I must have missed the part where you had the dispensary at the other location. You're not really operating a dispensary and a micro business here. You're essentially looking to modify the SUP just to allow storage.
Correct.
Yeah, that's where the confusion, because I saw the micro business license and I thought you were saying, because when we talked previously, there was some talk about locating a micro business in the back part of the building.
Correct.
You elected not to do that and just use the storage space. Okay. Okay, so,
Because we didn't want the odor in there of the growing and
right, yeah.
harvesting.
Okay, I will, like I said, so what we'll do after we normally we try to do the resolutions right after the closing of the public hearing. You're gonna have to wait a little bit because it's gonna require some rework of that resolution.
Okay.
I misunderstood what the request was. Yeah, so sorry about that. I don't know how I missed that. Because you already had the special use permit for the dispensary, right? We
Correct.
already did that. That's what I thought. Okay. Okay. Now I get it. Sure, that'd be great. Thank you. Thanks. Okay, questions? For him, go ahead.
So how'd you get this approved after a year, almost?
A lot of phone calls to different senators and the OCM every single day.
Okay.
Emails and phone calls. They're
Gotcha.
just brutal.
Okay. So absolutely, John, there'll be no growing of plants here?
At the 324 Jefferson Road location, no.
Okay.
I'm good.
Good?
Yeah. What threw me off was the resolution and then what I was reading from the state, so.
Yeah,
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 so
because
that's why, okay.
that's where our confusion was coming in. I thought this was a separate. I thought you were looking to do a micro business there.
Just the storage for the
Right,
product in the
right.
micro business.
I thought this was our second micro business because I knew there was one already in the regional market, but because that comes under ag law, not under municipal law. I don't know a lot about it other than when we get the applications, we refer to the market who then contacts the Office of Cannabis Management. So I didn't realize this was one in the same business. Okay. So really the only difference here, so I guess I'm not clear why this doesn't fall under a normal, the current special use permit. What's different that requires a modification of the original special use permit?
We weren't going to be storing plants in there. It was just going to be a straight dispensary. And we had the conversation, and this is,
Yeah, so that was about, like I said, when we had that conversation, I thought you were looking to open up a micro business there. And that's
No.
when we were talking about, because when it does, there was talk about that if you clip the buds, it greatly reduces the odor. So, yeah, so if you told me at that point that you were going to switch to just storing it, I missed that somewhere along the lines. Last time we spoke, I thought it was still that you were going to open up a micro business there.
no, because we have the micro business
Yeah.
over in the market.
I guess that's the part that I missed somehow.
Did I even need the additional special use for storage?
I don't know, but just to play it safe, because the one thing we did add was we're gonna just add that that basically you do the proper odor containment.
Mhm.
Because I don't think that was on your original, most dispensaries, there isn't.
There's no odor.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So I think what we'll do is we'll modify the original, we'll use this application to modify the original town board resolution. We're gonna make it clear that you're gonna be storing plants, not cultivating. Are you processing them there or just,
Nope.
so when you
Just storage.
process them, do you take them back? What do
They
you-
go back over to the regional
Okay.
market.
So then we'll also make it clear that it's storage only. So Becky, if you could also get me the original approval. I
On
would-
it.
Steve, are we doing that at this meeting or are we gonna hold off and still until next meeting?
We'll see. I'm gonna be looking at it when we have a chance, but yeah, Craig's on his way to come get it. And that one is Town Board Resolution 25-405, 2023, December 6th, 2023. I just need that resolution. Okay, does people have, no, I need the original one. I just want to, because essentially what we're gonna do is switch this to modify that original one. So
We
we,
do have the original one on there.
Yeah,
in
it's
our-
it's
If you have it in
2023
there, but I thought you
039.
wanted the paper. I didn't even go to get it, but it's
Right,
in
I-
there.
oh, I see it. Yeah, that is it. Okay.
And it was approved for a micro business license. And we didn't even have that in our town code until,
No. The first one was adult cannabis retail dispensary.
oh, the license I'm looking at is,
That one is for the regional market because it's agricultural. It doesn't,
Thanks,
it
Craig.
doesn't matter whether it's in our zoning code or not.
okay, but it has.
Market, so initially, before we had updated our code, we told anybody who wanted to do a micro business, the only place you can do it is within the regional market because it comes under ag law.
But it has two addresses here. That's what I'm looking at. Was this a new
license?
What came from the state?
Right, that's probably the
It's a new
updated one
license.
because we did,
He was just talking
Right.
about that.
Okay.
yeah. Okay, so let's
Get it.
continue the public hearing and then, like I said, what I'll do is close it and I'll take a little bit of time to clean this up.
Okay.
At some point, but any other questions?
Nope, thanks, John.
Thank you, John.
Any questions
Thank you.
from the audience, either in person or online? Then hearing and seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing for special use permit application number 2024-033 Rock Dispensary and Hydroponics LLC. As noted, we will not be putting forth a motion at this time. I will work on an updated resolution. Next up, we have a public hearing for a proposed large-scale solar project at 534 Brooks Road and neighboring Brooks Road property. That, just so people know, not all properties, if they don't have any structures on them, they don't have a street address. They do have a tax ID number, but they don't have a street address. So it's not just other people's houses, it's that same farm owner's property immediately adjacent to the property that carries a street number. I will note that
Thank you.
we are still within our 30-day window for doing seeker determination, so there will not be any motion at this meeting. This is to gather input so to assist in our seeker determination. So again, if you have feedback, if you identify any potential adverse conditions, we need to know that. They did have a community meeting and a couple of the residents and neighbors showed up. And so we will be entering their information on the public record with regards to potential adverse impacts. So, and with that said, please introduce yourself and your relationship to the project.
Sure. My name is Kathy Haig. I'm here with my colleague Dennis Duffin and also our consultants, Jim Palumbo and also Utah Middle. And I just wanted to introduce EDF and then hand over to Jim to go over our site plan, just a brief. So EDF is renewables, is a long established international power generator focused on low carbon and renewable energy. Our North American division developed projects in both grid scale.
You speak so softly.
Oh, do I?
Just
Can you
move-
speak into the mic?
move
I
closer
didn't
to the
catch your
mic.
first name.
Sorry, I guess I did closer to the mic. Sorry about that. So it's Kathy Haig.
Thanks,
and-
Kathy.
And my colleagues with me here. So in New York, we've completed 18 projects so far. This will be my 10th project. Jim's gonna do a few more specifics, but this is going to be a 3.5 megawatt project on about 17 acres. Once it's generating, it should produce enough energy for about 900 plus homes. We anticipate construction to start in late 2025, and we should be producing in late 2026. You did mention that we had our event. We do encourage local interest. So we did hold an event. We invited over 60 neighbors and stakeholders. That's really all I wanted to say about EDF, and then I'll pass it on to Jim.
Great, thank you. You can leave it that way, assuming we have the same, did you submit that to us in a PDF form? Okay,
Looking for it.
I think we're okay.
Okay, well, my name is Jim Palumbo. I'm with Klepper, Hahn and Hyatt. We're the civil end of the project. We're landscape architects and engineers. And I guess we're here for a special use permit, so I won't get into all the nitty gritty that a site plan goes through. But talk more or less of the system, the arrangement of the site, you know, the constraints that we're dealing with. We know the size of it was 3.5 megawatt. But the site is located off of Brooks Road. And this project will encompass two sections of array that are basically split between an existing easement that goes through a utility easement. So when you see it, the main portion of the array is to the east of that easement, and then there's the remainder of it to the west. That main array is what's going to have the equipment pad, if you will, the transformer associated with it. And from that point back out to the access to the site, there will be, and I'm speaking of the permanent access after construction, will be the one access to the west on Brooks Road.
Can you show that on this board? Because we're
Sure.
not finding it on there.
You want to point to it?
Can you switch it? Thank you. That's even better.
I'll get into that. Yep. So the main access is by the existing barns and structures. And
Is it that up online? Is it the same thing online?
Oh, now it's online.
There we
Okay.
go.
you can follow that for them to see, or it might help.
That's fine. You don't need that anymore. It's up there
Okay.
too. So maybe, like,
Okay, so the project, when it's constructed, that entrance will be the access to the site. During construction, there is a secondary access that we're proposing. And that access is the one that comes to Brooks Road between there's two residential properties, and there's an access that'll be used temporarily, short-term during construction. At that time, it's planned that will be removed. The DOT is going to permit us to have one entrance. They're not going to permit two. This property is comprised of two parcels that make up the entire lot. And just to get back into that, we're talking about property that's 80.56 acres in size. And the array itself is well within the requirements of not exceeding 25% or 25 acres. The array that you see on the arrangement we're showing, including the access road, is about 17.77 acres. So it's roughly 18 acres of coverage. So the access road that will come in from the west, that will serve in the end, you know, for access to the array for maintenance after it's built. So the regular maintenance, which is minimal, it's once in a while a pickup truck, for instance, or mowing equipment coming in. That will serve that and serve the equipment pad, any equipment pad and any maintenance that has to happen in the array. There is going to be connectivity at that entrance from a point of connection. So the equipment poles, there'll be poles with equipment on them for the utility company, as is required for the array with controls on that. That entrance will serve as well for any kind of maintenance that the public utility needs to have access to those poles. So with that, that's pretty much the arrangement of the array. Explain how it's divided up into two. The site itself, the existing site and where we're placing the array is currently field for the most part. We are removing some wooded area. We tried to minimize that as much as we could. So there's a couple minor areas that are going to get cleared of the trees, and that will be stabilized with field meadow, if you will, just like what's out there now. It's an existing field that's hayed for the current practices on the property. There are some wetlands. There's wetlands to the west, lends itself with the topography and the types of soils. The array itself is going on to a parcel that's got medium to well-drained soils, which is a good thing. And I say that because the water is going to go right into the ground. Everything with this array meets it's all in compliance with the DEC. This project will have everything engineered to meet those requirements for a solar array. The soils to the west, the reason for the wetland is there are a couple areas that are less than well drained, but for the most part, this area does have well drained soils. The topography, if you will, there's a divide in the watershed. So the hydrology is such that the water lends itself, you kind of picture where the easement goes through and splits the array. The contours will slope to the east and they'll slope to the west. This project, as we engineer it, we are obligated not to change the hydrology at all along the property line, and we will be assured of that. There are a couple areas with stormwater management that are very minor, and that has to do with the extreme storms as is required by the DEC. So meaning over the 100-year storm, when there's a capacity, we're obligated to do our best to make things better than what they were. But the hydrology is such that any water that is leaving the site that's going to be managed with a very shallow basin all lends itself to the west. Now, I want to say this because our office right now is currently trying our best to avoid any disturbance where you might see right now on the plan, there's a stormwater basin right where the road comes in and turns. And we're getting, we're making every effort we can per the customer, the solar array project, to avoid any disturbance we don't need to do with trees. So that area there, just to put that out there, it's looking very much that will not have that stormwater basin as a necessity there. And with that, the hydrology is going to remain similar to what it is today. And we're going to be able to put the road system in so that in that event of the extreme storm, 100-year storm, everything's flowing toward that wetland like it should. And the wetland is there to handle, that hydrology. And I do want to mention that this project is going forward to go, above and beyond to minimize stormwater management needs, because anything you have to manage is something that could, become a potential issue down the road. The service or the access road is going to be a pervious road system. So this will be a road system that is, if you will, it's going to be a reinforced gravel road. And with the well-drained soils that we're going to take advantage of, try to get the soils into the ground, which is what we want to do. There will be very minimal runoff as opposed to a crushed stone compacted road or asphalt or concrete. The asphalt on this project will be limited to the curb cut because DOT is going to want that at the curb cut. So there'll be a section of pavement asphalt apron as they're going to require. But this road here will have a pervious road, and that's part of our stormwater calculations and measures. There will be, as you should have on your drawings there, we're working on impacts. We always want to be considerate and sensitive to the surrounding community and any impacts that others might have. And we understand that there are homes that do look right at this array. And the intent is to provide adequate screening so that in due time, in short time, there will be screening that will screen off the direct view of the array. So that's going to be worked out as the site plan goes forward, and we're going to have a mix of evergreens and deciduous and try to make it naturalized rather than look like a deliberate screening. We want to kind of be sensitive to that. So on the drawings in front of you for purposes of special use permit, we indicate those areas that'll occur. And rest assured, we will make sure that we have adequate, acceptable screening in the way of vegetation. There is an existing transmission line utility. It's both electric and then there's gas at the north end of the site. And that also was a constraint we had. And this project is not infringing on any easements. Both array areas will be enclosed and secured with a fence system. And those fences and the array are all well outside of those areas. And then there are a couple isolated wetlands we avoided. I will say one of them is a man-made, it's actually a lined wetland for the current property. That has horses, and it was kind of a pond that was made for them. But we did even avoid that to maintain what that is. So I think that's in a general sense, an overview of the arrangement of the site. The site will consist of single axis trackers. So the array, as you can see, the layout is in a north-south direction of the panels, the strings. And this system will rotate as the sun comes up in the morning from the east, they'll rotate with the sun to the west and then go back in the evening. So it's not to be confused with early on, a lot of solar arrays are doing a fixed tilt type of approach. So the orientation of these arrays are different. And so the nice thing about those, what I like about them is they change through the day and you know, at middle of the day when they're most visible, they're almost, you don't really see them. They're kind of level. As far as that goes, but they're single axis, meaning it's one panel. It's not like as far as right now where the project stands, that's how it's designed. It's not a double portrait, big high panel. And I don't know if I missed anything else that you want me to elaborate on, Yuta.
Yes. Jim Palumbo, right?
Yes.
What would you say the grade of the soil is that these arrays are going on?
The
The
weight.
grade
Oh, the
of the
grade?
soil.
So we do have varying grades, and when we design, we have to take that into account with the post-development when it comes to hydrology. There is about an area, the steeper areas are in the neighborhood of 10%, and that's going to be, if you were to look at on the east side. Now, 10%, to give you an idea, that's a grade. If you were to go and look at an ADA accessible ramp, that's 8.3%. So 10% it's a subtle grade, it's steep. And that's what the grades are now in the field. And they're covered with nice heavy vegetative meadow. And then there are steeper grades on the property, but I'm speaking of within our array here. They do get a little steeper on the west array, and you might be looking at more in the neighborhood of 15% slopes as you get toward the buffer area of that wetland. So that's considered grades enough. When we look at the hydrology, DEC has measures we have to have in place with that to just assure that there's no concern with erosion or deterioration of anything.
There were a few neighbors that came in, they were worried about swells going to their property. And I know you guys had a notation about something in the back. And I know we're gonna put some notations in for that, but
Yeah, just to follow up on that, Rob, based off of that, one of the conditions is going to be check dams on streams, swales, or culverts so that no runoff to neighboring properties.
Right,
Because-
so I can elaborate on that. It was brought to my attention, so I'm
Okay.
prepared to kind of explain that. So the check dams, when we see the word dam, check dam, it's a temporary measure that's part of what the DEC requires during construction to assure there's no transportation of sediment off the site. You know, we want to keep everything on the site. Some people see check dams as these stone structures that are permanent. This is temporary. Once the site is stabilized, they'll be removed and they're placed strategically. And there may be we're showing a check dam. That's to say, this is where we need to apply that measure, that best management practice. When we develop the site plan process, there will be no permanent measures like that because the vegetation handles that, but they can't remove those until that's been established. That's a DEC requirement. And they're located in that drainage course. There's kind of a natural swale. So to the north, we have one, and then it gets to the point of, then it leaves the site and outlets into that easement for the transmission line, which is very heavily vegetated. And that acts like a spreader, just like the whole site will act with vegetation. So that's not a permanent structure. And I think some folks might see that and get concerned there's a dam. It's not a dam in the sense of an engineered structure to be an impoundment of water. It's a temporary measure. And these are not going to be check dams in the way of stone. We're going to do this in a way with there's some great stuff they've come out with. They're called silt socks, wattles. And instead of putting that structure of stone, which becomes more of a disturbance, we're finding in development, of recent years, it's much more manageable to put in these silt socks, which are, if you will, they're big round wattles.
Let me just
that-
say, our planning board will have something to say in that regards. They'll be
And-
the ones who ultimately decide this.
Yeah.
I'm just pointing out that these are items that have been identified as potential adverse impacts as part of seeker. So I get it that yes, there is a DEC regulation, but we're actually going to make this a condition of your special use permit. It's going to be part of your seeker, because I can't always depend on NYSERDA's, or not NYSERDA, sorry, the DEC's enforcement. If we see this, we're gonna come and shut you down. We're gonna put, if we see, blowouts, mud flowing to the neighboring properties, we're gonna come and shut it down. I agree, this is during construction. Once all the bare soil has been stabilized, and well, it's not just stabilized, because you can also do temporary stabilization with things like grass, but basically like straw and stuff like that. Once it is fully stabilized, permanent, it has ground cover on it, so that when there's rain, there is no sediment runoff. Only then will we be okay with you removing the check dams.
Can I ask, this is an MS4, this town?
Correct.
So we understand that, and definitely, like, as you mentioned, during the site plan review process, I take
Yeah.
it that you have an engineer consultant that will review this,
Absolutely.
and we will work 100%, and I'm sure they will not advise that planning board until it's satisfactory,
Right.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's the same concept to the check dam that was labeled to the south.
Yep.
They're temporary measures.
Thanks,
Um,
Jim.
One other thing that was brought up at that meeting, we'd like to see greater separation to the property lines to the south on the western array. It's even possible, it looks like it's a little closer than the one on the eastern array to those property lines. But the other problem too is the houses in front of the western array have shallower backyards. So you're already starting off closer to the house. So we'd like to see greater separation, figure out how to move some of those arrays elsewhere so that we get greater separation. We're gonna make that, again, this will be a condition. And in most of these, just because, again, we don't do site plan, a lot of these affect the site plan, but they're identified under the seeker process because we're doing a coordinated seeker review. So we not only cover seeker aspects with regards to the special use permit, but we also require or cover potential adverse impacts that would be mitigated during the site plan process. So when we do that, what you'll see on your the resolution, it will say something along the lines of, provide greater separation, and we might even quantify that. We're gonna have a discussion for the next meeting. As far as, we might quantify that, but ultimately it will be to the satisfaction of the planning board. So, because again, it's part of the site plan approval process.
We will definitely look into that. That's not something I want to speak to how we're going to do it.
Yep.
right now. But
Again, you
there
can't
is-
answer that question now. I'm just
Yeah.
letting you know that that's something that was identified, and I agree with them. Again, especially because those houses, their backyards are much shallower than the backyards of the houses to the east. And then, the other thing we talk about is that, there needs to be sufficient screening. So when you're positioning your arrays, if you're worried, because these properties are to the south, therefore the screening is to the south. So if you're worried about the shadow of that vegetative screening, then you need to set your arrays far enough to the north so that they're not in the shadow of that vegetative screening. Because again, we want to see vegetative screening there so that these people are not looking out at shiny arrays. If the individual wants to see that view, they'll let you know, I'm sure, but most people would prefer to see a vegetative screen. Typically, we're looking for evergreens, you know, there's a number of different types. One of the ones we found that's nothing is fully deer resistant, but some are predated on much less than others. One of those is green giant arborvitae. If you have some of that screening, that type of stuff in there, and there's a maximum height that you have to hit in order to keep your, keep the raised shade free, you will need to specify in your plan, what is that height you would top? In other words, if they grow above that height, what is that height that you would top them? Because we want to understand that. And when I say we, I especially mean the planning board and the conservation board. They're going to take a look at that. You might also be able to find trees that grow to a maximum height and you don't ever have to worry about it. But again, if there is some cap that you're going to be topping these trees, we want to understand that. Because we don't want it to be too short, and we don't want it to present. A lot of people take offense to the trees under power lines because they get just chopped and massacred and they look ugly, right? So when you're picking your vegetation, pick something that's going to work well, present a nice view to these neighbors. Because again, that is critically important. And again, those are things that can get shut down. The other thing I'll mention in that regards, if you, I don't know what your schedule is for your special use permit approval process, but I would recommend if it's before the tree planting season is closed, you might want to look at getting some of that vegetation in this year so that it starts to grow up and provide screening, not just from the future arrays, but also from the construction, so that again, people aren't looking out their backyard and seeing a bunch of construction. It could also help with noise and dust because, oh, by the way, that's going to be another condition on the special use permit is minimizing noise and dust. And one of the things we ask when they're in this close proximity, we ask that your crews work with the neighbors with respect to avoiding special times for them. And what I mean by that is maybe it's their kid is graduating from high school and they're going to have a high school graduation party on a Friday, and they prefer you not work that day because they're going to have everything set up and they don't want, you know, dust landing on stuff. So, you know, we're going to want you to work with the neighbors. Now, again, it's got to be reasonable. They can't say, well, I have something special every day, so don't work, right? That's not reasonable. But you know, we'd like you to work and accommodate, essentially be good neighbors. That's what we're asking you to be.
Just to be clear, the project cannot allow dust to fly, you know, just so
Yeah.
there's not a concern.
Yeah, I understand it. You're doing the pile drive.
Well,
method,
I'm just,
correct?
from a DEC standpoint, your
No,
engineer on the site plan
again-
process will know that that's
Yep.
a
I
perfect
understand
world.
that.
It's not allowed, so.
But from a
they need
seeker
to-
standpoint, these have been identified as potential adverse impacts. And as I've said before, we can't always rely. In fact, I can pretty much rely on the fact that I can't rely on DEC's policing of these things. We've seen too many times where developers violate the DEC regulations. And if we don't have them in here, then we can't enforce it, only the DEC can. So by identifying it as part of the seeker process, making it a condition of the special use permit, it gives us teeth to, because again, it's great. You're saying you can talk this. In all my interactions with the company so far, it's been great. And I think they're going to be really good. But oh, by the way, one of the things that often happens in this market, they turn around and sell it to another company. And we had this in our very first one. The first company we were working with was great. The second company that came in didn't give a damn. And so having that teeth and that resolution so that we could shut them down and correct their activities and fix their stuff was very important. So just to be clear, this isn't a knock against you. It's just ensuring the neighbors that we have teeth. So if you have stuff, we can hit you with a stop work order and say, fix this. And one of the other things I'll say with respect to that, one of the things I want you to really stress with your employees, because this will result in a shutdown, as a couple other businesses found out during construction. that means no early starts, right? It means you can't have the trucks show up. The quiet hours for construction is, is 7 AM. You can't have employees showing up at 6 o'clock, slamming doors, starting engines, especially reverse beepers out there having a lot of conversation. That's something that you guys are gonna have to police your subcontractors to make sure that that doesn't happen, because I guarantee you that will get you a stop work order. We just can't, if you're out in the middle of nowhere and there's no neighbors that you're disturbing, who cares? No harm, no foul, right? You got houses right next door. And in fact, your construction road goes right between houses. So it's going to be extremely important that you pay attention to this. And oh, by the way, I live just down the street, so I'll come by a lot. So you're going to get more eye of public officials than a normal project. If I see stuff, I will be calling it into the code enforcement officers. And again, if it's a significant violation, it could result in a stop work order. So I just want to really stress that, because it's very important to us. And I can see from some of the nods out in the neighbors, it's important to them. So I just don't want that brushed off lightly.
Yeah, and I would just like to offer.
Please talk to the microphone, because
I'd just like to offer that we will reach out to those neighbors that are directly to the south and talk with them specifically about screening.
yeah, that'd be great, because, so like one of the things that was discussed at the neighborhood meeting is like, if someone wants a stockade fence and then vegetative screening, or maybe vegetative screening, then a stockade fence, we want you to look at that. I love that you guys offered that. That came up at that meeting. Like I said, that's why I've said all my interactions with you guys so far have been great. They don't know that. They haven't had, a few people showed up, but not everybody showed up. So, but again, we'll call it trust but verify, right? So that's great. And we look forward to seeing something, like I said, be good neighbors and minimize the impact. It's never going to go away. When you're pile driving, you're going to hear that. I'll hear it down at my house, even though I'm across the railroad tracks. That's the nature of the beast. But the good news is, for those people who aren't aware, once that's all in, nobody visits the site or rarely visits the site, right? There really isn't much noise. In fact, one of the things, if you hear a buzzing sound, let them know, because it probably means one of their pieces of electrical equipment is malfunctioning. That if you are close to them, you might hear a quiet hum. If you can hear a hum at your house, there's something wrong. The other thing you might hear is when those tilting panels track the sun, it sounds like, if you've ever heard boats creaking in a harbor when they're pulling on their lines and such. It's very reminiscent of that sound. It's not loud. It's actually a pleasant sound. It's better than the sound that we get from the New York State Thruway. Let's put it that way. So I just want people to understand, what's in store if this does get approved. And I'll quiet down and let other board members ask questions.
Well, I was just gonna mention, and Steve hit on it, one thing was the screening. I've had a lot of experience with giant evervites, giant green giants, and great for screening, grow very quickly if they're taken care of, in the early years. So that's one thing. Wanted to know, they are putting up a bond for decommission, right, Steve?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Can you send some other locations in New York State? Anything on the
Especially if it's somewhere in this
Western New
area.
York?
Question of.
Can you send your other, you said you had 18 locations you've built? I'd like to, I travel a lot and I might stop by one of them. And then the last question I have is about, are you going to use local labor, or are you bringing in a bunch of out-of-towners to do this project?
We use New York labor.
There's a mic right there if you want to speak into that one.
So we do use New York labor, definitely.
Right.
Okay, well, okay, I win.
Well, I'm not sure what you.
Usually local laborers, we consider the 7 surrounding counties, but, okay. And obviously you've built New York State before, because it's over 1 megawatt, it has to be at least prevailing wage. Okay, those are my.
One thing that came up in the previous one of the things you're gonna need to do is provide a tree clearing map, what trees you're clearing. We've already talked about this, but again, I want the neighbors to understand this. Identify any of the more valuable trees, and if there's a way to save them, we do. Obviously, if it's in the middle of where the array is gonna be, we can't. But the thing is, then we're gonna define those limits of tree clearing. Don't go beyond it. That's one way to, again, get yourself shut down. And so typically what we love to see, because you're gonna be working with subcontractors who may do an oops. One of the things we've had people do is actually just run yellow tape or orange snow fence, something to clearly delineate, don't go past this. Especially because you're starting to get into woodland buffers, or wetland buffers, you disturb in that wetland buffers, and now you're potentially shut down for a long time. So that's something we highly recommend, because again, communication, that some subcontractors get a little overzealous in their clearing. Highly recommend you fully delineate, whether it's painting trees, tying ropes around, or like I said, just stretching out yellow tape or orange fence, just something to clearly mark the limits of clearing. Especially because again, a lot of those areas, I'm assuming you're going to be stumping those trees.
Right, the hedgerow, the hedgerow is really the main area where
Right.
we're taking out trees, probably a little bit on the western edge.
Yep.
And we'll assure that the site plan process has that denoted on it so that, it's part of your records. This is what we approve.
Nope,
So it'll be
absolutely.
something to the effect of they're required to delineate at the start of construction and all
Yeah.
that to assure those measures are met.
Right. No, again, yes, that is part of the special use the site plan process. Again, we're just marking it,
Sure.
identifying it as part of the secret process.
Jim, what happened to one of our projects is that they did delineate all the trees they were going to take out. It was all set, panels were in, and after the fact, they came back and wanted to take down more trees. And the owner wasn't too happy about it.
Right.
So that was one of the issues that we had with a developer, not you guys, someone else. You said 900 homes will be potentially affected positively by this. How many panels are you expecting to have, you think?
Around 6,500.
That was
6,500, 7,000 from the audience,
from Dennis.
from
he's-
Dennis.
He's with EDR.
EDF.
EDF? EDR is somewhere I know. Better than EDF.
WRP.
I know. They're too close. Sorry about that. Thank you, Dennis.
When did you say you expect this project to be done? Excuse me,
Late 25.
late 25?
No,
We hope to start construction in 2025 and be generating in 2026.
right.
Oh,
Okay,
so
thank
early
you.
25.
I have a question specific to one that Councilmember Barley introduced about the grade of the property. As I'm looking specifically at the eastern side of the array, would it be fair to say that this slopes not only eastward, but also gently to the northeastward? The
Right,
property's
so-
ways?
Right around where the property is, there's a hydrology course, basically the direction of the flow goes to the north from there. Right past where the ray stops to the south, that's kind of a divide there, and which we're not touching any of that. That water goes directly to the east and tends to find its way a little bit off this page to the south. But and I'm glad you brought that up, because when you look at this, you have to look at the grades, and we'll be doing that with the site plan process and your engineer. But basically where the array is, that runoff is running to the east, and it is intercepted by a drainage course that goes to the north. Correct.
You had mentioned that as it currently lays in a weather event, the vegetation is able to soak up the existing moisture that comes down. Is there any concern that by covering a majority of this with panels, that's going to concentrate the runoff in a way that might be a little bit more difficult to contain?
Good question. So it always comes up and the DEC always backs it up. They're fine with it. They look at the ground cover. And it's a solid ground cover. There's no break in it. The panels are up above, and the panels will change through the day. So it's never going to be the same spot it comes off. But when you say that the grass, the meadow has the ability to absorb, but not during that rain event. They can't take it up that fast. The thing about the matrix of a meadow or a woods versus asphalt is it slows the water down. You've got thatch and roots and things that hold the water from gaining any velocity and running off like it would on bare ground. And that gives the ability, and this site, remember, has some well-drained to moderately well-drained soils, which is great. Slowing that water down and holding it within that vegetative mass helps it go into the ground. You know, that first runoff goes right in, and once the ground's saturated, it actually works well in pulling water through, kind of like a sponge. You ever took a sponge and you soak it and you hold it up, it starts dripping from the bottom, it starts, you know, pulling down. So the vegetation is not so much, it absorbs it over time, plants benefit from it, but it's that initial runoff. Most storms, the water really won't go very far. It gets held up in that matrix of vegetation and it helps it get right in the ground.
The exception, of course, will be during construction. Now, because they're not the major areas, when they're removing that hedgerow and they stump, there's going to be a bunch of dirt. They're going to have to replace that and again, stabilize it. Most likely some temporary solution eventually with ground cover. And then obviously they're going to be digging that up with not literally digging, but the tires and the construction vehicles will be turning some of it to mud. So that's why it's important to have those silt fences, check dams, and other stormwater pollution prevention measures in place during construction. Once everything's fully stabilized and it's returned to essentially how it's operating today, then they'll be able to remove the temporary stuff. We are talking about taking a look at, and the town's going to take a look at, right now, as you look at how some of this drains to the southeast corner, it drains towards people's houses. Just the ones in the very southeast corner of this map. And one of the things we're going to take a look at, we have to look at what's beyond this. A couple properties down, there is essentially a small wetland there. It used to be a ash tree forest, if you could call it that, which ash trees soaked up a lot of water. Now it's largely standing water. And then it overflows into a drainage system that runs into Red Creek. One of the things we're going to see is if possible, would we be able to divert, essentially add a swale when they're doing this work to bring it around and over. We need to check immediately to the east is farmland. So we would need to check with the farmer to make sure we wouldn't be disturbing if we brought a swale through that corner of his property, that he'd be okay with that. But that way it could potentially help reduce the amount of water that gets to near these houses, foundations, that the condition you see today. So this goes back to, if it's possible, we try to improve the runoff situation. They certainly can't make it worse. That's against the rules, but they could also potentially make it better. But unfortunately, that's not all contained within that property. So for us to do that, we would need permission from the farmer. So, you know, our plan is to, over the next week or two, to go talk to them. And then we would basically, again, put that in, identify that, and add it to, we'll have a little bit, be able to ask questions in a minute. Okay, sounds good. You know, because like I said, we want to take a look at as how we can try to minimize the impact on these houses. Not just minimize the impact, but if you look at this grades today, the water from a portion of that hill is running towards those houses down the slope. So,
Thank you, Steve and Jim. Thank you.
any other questions from the town board? Okay, what I'm gonna ask you to do is sit at the table, so you'll be able to answer questions, because we're gonna now invite folks from the public. I assume you're the farmer? Well, I'm gonna call you up first, just in case you have to get running.
My name is Marty Miller. We own the property at 5121 West Henrietta Road, immediately east of this proposed project. I do have some concerns, multiple different things. Main concern is drainage. So like you just said, I've read through a lot of the proposal, and somehow it mentioned the water was going to find its way to Red Creek, but knowing the slope of the land, I've worked all those fields that they're proposing to build on. I can tell you they're full of springs. That's one externality that's not been thought of. If we're gonna fence in 18 acres, you're gonna push increasing deer pressure on our adjacent property. Another externality. I don't know about what the other neighbors said at the meeting. I was unable to attend that one, so I don't know what was said there, what points were brought up. But our main concern is drainage. The other thing, based on the map they were just showing, I'm concerned about that eastern hedgerow. Their array is awful close to the hedgerow, so are they gonna actually be clearing trees out of our hedgerow? Because some of those cottonwoods are 50, 60 feet high.
Right.
They're gonna cast quite a shadow. So,
We're
Could-
not planning- we're
yeah.
not planning on
So-
clearing any of that eastern hedgerow.
Right, the hedgerow that they are talking about clearing, if you look, there is a significant, we require by code a significant setback from any parcel line, so your hedgerow is within, in other words, is along that property line, then there's a cleared area, then their fence comes in, and then their stuff starts. The hedgerow they're talking about clearing is the one that was between the two Ruckow properties.
Mhm.
They're not to be touching that, but I'm gonna put no disturbance,
correct.
no disturbance of eastern hedgerow. From a drainage standpoint, so going back to that question, I don't know what it currently does behind those houses at what would be for you, the southwest corner. I know there's like
Some of that actually slopes back up, so any drainage issues, I don't think they would be creating that are already existing there. Because it begins to slope back up as you go south. I've worked all those fields. I can tell you
Right.
exactly what the slope is.
Right. I just didn't know, like, for instance, again, there's a couple houses away, there is the first connection into that stormwater system that does eventually reach Red Creek over by
Correct.
RIT.
That's the southern edge of our property.
Yeah, I don't know if, like I said, unfortunately, I do know that empty parcel that had all the ash trees, it's a lot wetter than it ever was, because there's
Correct.
nothing soaking up all that water,
Correct.
but,
Yep.
and the topography isn't great to get the water into that. When it gets to a particular height,
Yep.
the overflow will go into that creek, but it's not enough to drain it.
No.
There's always standing water
No.
there. And I know the ash trees are starting to come down. So,
Yeah, one of the things that I did a little research on was the acceleration of the water off of the drip edge of the panels. So when they're tilted, if they're tilted to catch the morning sun, like he said, they're gonna track the sun, they're gonna all be tilted to the east. That's gonna increase the flow. So if we get a storm in the morning, and we've had these storms just this summer, where we've had in excess of 2.5 inches of rainfall from a single storm. I already know that's not gonna, that vegetation, right, the meadow they're describing, right, the grass is not gonna hold that back.
so one of the questions I have on that, is there any kind of, swale or water channel under the, high voltage power lines?
No.
Because my point is, they could arguably, you know, if they essentially did a little bit of a berm along the eastern edge, it would channel it north, but I don't want to channel it into the houses that are on the far side of that.
Correct.
I mean, where does that go today when it,
Well, Red Creek does actually loop around. They could conceivably connect there. They wouldn't even have to go through our property. They could do it from the Rocco property and get to Red Creek. Because it does curve back around. It goes back to the west again before it heads north.
gotcha, let me, I'm gonna pull up imagery to try to take a look at that.
While he's looking that up, Marty, what was your address?
5121 West Henrietta.
Thank you.
So it's the farm on the corner.
Okay. Yep.
Right by the corn at, right there?
Yeah,
Good corn, Marty.
Thank you, Mr. Barley.
Yeah.
okay, yeah, it gets. Well, if it's not on their property, it's awfully close. Certainly, it looks like a connection could potentially. You know, maybe we'll reach out to the power authority to see if a swale could be put.
The only difficulty you're gonna run into there is crossing the gas line.
Yep.
Because I've already had discussions with
Yeah.
power authority.
Well, it would just be, because again, so for this area, I can do it with a swale, which means I don't have an issue with the gas line, but then when I get to that northeast corner of their property, I've got to cross a little bit of that, the area under the power lines to get to Red Creek. It's not far, but that'll be the question. So we'll take a look at that.
Okay. That's my main concern.
Sounds good.
All right.
Appreciate
Thanks,
you.
Marty.
Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
feedback.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Brian Hawes and I live at 582 Brooks Road, which is one of the properties right in between the gravel road that will wrap around our properties. The farthest left. Keep going left.
Oh, here.
Yes.
The red house?
Yes, I just made that red.
Okay.
Yes, you know, another Henrietta resident, small business owner here in Henrietta, bought that house 2 years ago. Mostly for the fact that it would bordered a horse farm and had a beautiful hayfield in the back. And I kind of got my taste of the Midwest here in Henrietta, but still less than 5 minutes from Wegmans, which is nice.
Right.
Unfortunately, I don't know if it's the Bobby's fault or the homeowners, but I was never told that there were any plans for any solar panels or anything of that nature. And now that I'm here and I've invested a lot of my time and energy, as any of you have driven by, you've seen that I regraded the entire property, took down 7 trees, redid all the vinyl siding, everything. And then I kind of find out, well, your beautiful view, really the value of the property. You know, I spent $250,000 on a beat up ranch because of the view and the horses and all that is essentially all going to be removed as a result of this project.
Well, I mean, just to be clear, the solar the code that allows the solar code is actually part of our farmland protection. And I know it sounds contradictory, but very simply, a lot of these small farms can't afford to make it. And there's, you know, typically then what happens is I mean, I think you know the answer, right? What happens when a farm can't go? Where are they going to get the best money? From a developer who wants to come in and put in a subdivision. And so the idea of the solar panels is you're only taking up 25% of the acreage to preserve the farm. And during that time that those solar panels are active, they have to have an agricultural easement on the farm, which basically means it's farming or nothing. So it will preserve, and that lasts a minimum of 25 years or the length of the time those panels are in place, whichever is longer. So it will actually preserve some of your view. It will ensure that you're still surrounded by farms. Granted, some portions of that farm are going to have arrays on it, but that's actually the purpose of the project no, I shouldn't say the project. That's the purpose of the code we put in, was because again, in today's agricultural worlds, our small farms just can't compete.
Sure. Yeah, I understand that. I want to be neighborly. I don't want to sit here and say no. So, I mean, everybody loves the idea of solar panels until they're in their own damn backyard and suddenly it's not so pretty. You know, right now I can feed the horses that border my property apples and pet them, and I have a 4-year-old daughter who likes them. And that will be taken away for a gravel road and whatever that looks like. Granted, it's not my property and I can always sell my house.
And you will be, I mean, the horses will still be there. Just to be clear, she's not shutting down.
Correct. They just
Yeah.
won't border my property anymore.
Right, you'll have to walk down that gravel road.
Yeah, if she's okay with that. So I guess that's part of my concern is, you know, do we need the 2 roads? I mean, granted, now I heard today that one is going to be removed. I was hoping it'd be the one on the west that would be removed so that, you know, my whole property isn't now bordered by a gravel road. But I understand the other one goes between 2 other houses, so I guess that'd be the one you'd want to take out. My second question, which you brought up earlier, was on that western, what would you call it, plot? It is significantly closer to our property line than the other ones. You know, I would be pleased if that got backed up, whatever, a couple hundred, or even just even with the one on the right. And so that, you know, you can still get, you know, your solar panels and your business can make money in that. And then the farmer can still make her money and all that. And then, you know, for me, I don't feel like,
No,
you know, I'm living in an industrial complex.
I'm with you. In fact, on ours, it doesn't seem to show up as much on the blue panels, but on our black and white ones, there's a section that is lighter in color. I'd peel that back. It's not quite even with the other line, but it moves it back significantly. And same thing, that would allow you to push the road further back from your house too.
Yep, I'd enjoy that. And then again, just reemphasize, you know, vegetative barriers, nice, you know, the fence with a green felt on it isn't the prettiest thing to me.
No,
but I'd
but-
love some sort of a berm or the vegetation and I understand that's not going to grow in a day. But it would be nice to be able to have both the solar panels, but also maintain for us who are right there.
But like one of the things that grows insanely quickly in our area on Brooks Road are the grapevines, right? So for instance, you could put in a fence like a picket fence that it's not a stockade, it's a picket. The grapevines will go right up through there and it will make a solid green wall. Now, again, you're going to still want something evergreen behind that because in the wintertime, the leaves will come down, but boy, in the summer, it will quickly green right up. You know, and I'm not saying that's the route you have to go, but like I said, there's a lot of different options we can look at. And I love your plan that you'll talk to the neighbors to see what they're interested in, because again, that does make a big difference.
One specific question. So when I got my property surveyed in the back left, do you mind if I come over here and point for you guys? No problem.
Actually, could you do me a favor? Grab that mic off the table. Just hold it while you're
Okay.
talking.
There's an area of pine trees here that I don't know if it's technically on mine or hers. Will you guys be touching those pine trees? Okay, wonderful.
That's what we were explaining before, that we originally planned a very shallow detention pond there, but since we don't want to touch those trees, we're going to try to move that.
And then, unfortunately, my property there does turn into a pond. Everything is graded from that horse farm right down to between my house and the horse farm. And after a big rain, I will have standing water. Now, I know previously, and I'm sure some of the other neighbors will talk about it, it used to be a serious issue, which they brought in actual engineers, I think maybe from New York State, and they dug the whole thing up, and then they put in an actual storm drain that goes under the road, kind of right near where that access is going to be. So, you know, my concern is I don't want that to get any worse. And if during construction, I don't want to lose half my property to standing water. I mean, I work in construction, but I don't do giant landscaping.
So again, they
projects.
can't.
So,
It's not allowed under seeker, under stormwater prevention, a whole bunch of stuff. But this also goes back to, again, why we put it in here. Because then we don't have to go to these other agencies to say, stop and fix it right now. We'll be able to do that. So, you know, one of the things though we can take a look at is if the current stuff is draining towards your yard, you know, if they've got that, so there's that shallow stormwater retention, again, move that. If we can push this whole, if that array's moving further north and the road moves further north, we can push the pond a little bit north, and we could have a swale that helps bring that water into the pond. Now, again, typically those are retention ponds, detention ponds, excuse me. So that, in other words, it detains it, but if it's a heavy enough storm, you're still gonna get water. You can never, I won't say never, it's nearly impossible to build something that's gonna stop everything. But you could stop and greatly reduce the amount of runoff that hits the neighboring properties. Typically what we see in projects like this, you know, it's like 20 to 30%, sometimes even more, that they can reduce with, whether it's with berm swales, the shallow detention basins, they can keep this stuff away. The difference between the two, by the way, is a retention pond retains the water, it stays wet the whole time. A detention pond, if it dries off and drains away, it'll be grass, except when after rain events. So some of that will be defined as to whether there is a place for them to have an outlet of that. If they have an outlet, then it will be a detention pond, which basically just means what they typically do is your outlet is smaller than the current runoff. And so, you know, if I don't know numbers, but I'll just make some number up, right? If it's 100 gallons an hour running off today, and they have an outlet pipe that only allows 60 gallons to run off, then they've reduced that amount of runoff by 40 gallons. And what happens is during the rain events, the pond builds up and drains at the controlled rate. Obviously, again, if it's like we had that massive rain event a month or so ago, it would fill up so fast it would top over. You're not going to be able to stop that. But
Will you
can
guys
stop
build an
most of
ark
it.
for us if it gets that bad?
That's right.
I guess I have two more questions. One would be, is there going to be work being done on the weekends? Not anticipated. I would appreciate if, you know, I'm going to have loud construction from nominally 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. that hopefully weekends would be free, at least, you know, for my family and the other residents. And I guess then the second question would be, so I have a friend who does project management with all these, and what are you guys setting aside for when these go bad in 25 years to either replace or remove? Are you setting aside enough to take that down? Are you guaranteeing, you know, how good the property is going to look while it's down? You're going to have to redo these roads to do it. Are you accounting for inflation with all of that? Are you guys going to actually be the ones that maintain it? What if, like, honor that? What if you go out of business?
So that,
a lot of
to
questions.
answer, I'll just answer your question quickly. So we do require them to put down a bond to basically decommission it. It does calculate in a projected rate of inflation. They maintain it. Typically what happens is while that company's, like, people worry about, well, what if the things deteriorate? Their monitors will tell them if a panel is at all defective, and they'll come out and replace it because they're not getting the energy performance from that. Now, to your point, the reason for the decommissioning bond is either the company goes out of business or the company decides, you know what, it's not worth it anymore, I'm going to abandon it. That's what the decommissioning bond is there for. If we find that ever kicks in, the town, basically, it's a non-revocable bond. So basically, only we can release it, and we will only release it once it's been decommissioned. But if it ever gets to the state where it's been abandoned, then town crews, whether we do it or we hire somebody to come in and do it, they would remove it and restore the grass. Now, one of the things our code requires decommissioning bonds. Our code also requires that they either have to be pile driven or augered in. We don't allow the ones set in concrete. So when you pull those out, the disturbance is much less than the disturbance when they're going in. But basically, yes, it would have to be removed and restored.
Okay,
So,
I think I've said my share. Thanks for listening.
okay, thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Next. Come on up.
How you doing? My name's Tony Vasilowski, 590 Brooks Road. You guys touched on a lot of topics already. One of the things I was questioning, I went to one of the other ones on East River Road. You guys had a road inside the fenced-in area. I was just curious if there's gonna be any roads within the fenced-in area to maintain the arrays.
So there's a section of road within the fence on the one part of the array. There's
To
two
the
different
east.
parts to get to the equipment pad. They need to have the ability to get in there with a turnaround.
And that's the same thing at the one in East, on East River Road. If you go in that one, it's leading to the equipment bay. The rest of the array, in fact, the property owner actually grows mums in between the arrays because, oh, by the way, now he's got a fenced in area where to Mr. Miller's point, the deer can't get there. And so basically he grows mums in between the arrays, but the road typically goes to the central electronics that control the arrays. There rarely is anything inside that goes just parallel to the.
Okay.
To the
I do have a question. On the west there, you have a 100-foot wetland buffer, it says. And then.
Well, are you able to speak into the microphone? We can't hear you virtually. Thank you very much.
To the west, you have a 100-foot wetland buffer. In between the two, there's clearly wetland. I don't see a 100-foot wetland buffer there. I'm curious why there's no buffer there between the two. And in between the two arrays, there is a wetland. If you,
So that wetland is not conducive of a buffer. That is an isolated wetland. It doesn't contribute directly to the larger wetland. So there's, that one there does not have the requirement by DEC for a buffer. So that falls more under Army Corps jurisdiction, or they look at it as an isolated. That's a man-made wetland. That's basically a shallow area with, it's got a liner on it. It was for the horses for watering.
so what happens when vehicles and equipment and stuff go through that?
They shouldn't be through that. The fence is going around it, so that doesn't happen.
So there's gonna be a permanent fence there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just so we're clear, it's a requirement that there's a permanent fence around the entire array.
I'm talking specifically between the two. There is a specific circle
Right.
there.
If you look, the fence jogs, the pond is outside the fence.
Hmm.
The fence jogs to the east around that pond.
So that wetland area will have silt fence all the way around it and probably that orange fence as well. So that during construction, no one will go in.
Right.
But after construction, there's still gonna be a fence there?
Yes, taken down, but the construction would be.
I'm sorry, Kathy. We're having a hard time hearing you.
So
There will.
I am using the microphone, but I can speak a lot louder.
she couldn't hear Kathy.
Couldn't hear
To
Kathy.
answer it,
There's a hand
the
in here,
permanent
Mike.
fence will be in place at the end of
Right.
construction.
So again, around the arrays, there is a permanent fence. If you look at the plans, there's that gap on either side. So basically what that is a easement. There is a power utility corridor.
I have all the.
There's a power utility core running through there. And so that's why there are no arrays under there. That pond is partially is half in that easement, half out of the easement. So what happens is the fence is coming up along the easement. It gets to the fence. The permanent fence goes east, north, west, back to the edge of the easement and continues on. So that fence, if someone's riding a horse down that gap between the two fences, the horse would be able to still drink from that wetland. During construction, they will have silt fence to make sure it doesn't silt in from disturbed soils. And again, they may have a orange construction fence just to make it more visible so that no one accidentally drives through it. But that temporary construction fence would come down when it's stabilized. The permanent fence that jogs around it to the east would remain. Got it?
Just to be clear, that wetland was actually not intended for watering horses, but it was a water feature for a cross-country jump. So that
Oh,
was why
okay.
it was originally created.
Gotcha.
So,
Like steeple.
yeah,
Okay,
it's gonna
section.
cross-country.
Okay, so
I do have a question. You touched about how this is something you designed in Henrietta to preserve, no further development. Is there any tax benefit of a solar farm, or is it still being taxed specifically like agricultural farms?
So no, the land under the solar panels loses the agricultural exemption. In fact, they have to pay essentially some of the back taxes. There's a clawback. I don't remember how many years it is, 5, something like 4 or 5, something 6, something like that. And then in addition, there will be a pilot that they will be paying additional taxes above and beyond the tax of the land to cover, essentially they're paying tax, that pilot pays the tax on the arrays themselves being installed. So they will be paying far more taxes than that land is currently paying today.
But obviously not as much as, let's say, approximately 300 homes or whatever would go back there.
There, you wouldn't be able to fit 300 homes there,
Well,
but yes,
okay.
correct.
But those solar arrays also aren't taking up school, you're not
Right.
having, if there's 100 houses there, you might have a lot of kids in school, you have roads to plow, there's expense.
Well, not to mention, I don't know that Brooks Road could handle 100 homes added to it. So,
Well, I mean, we talked about Brian, my neighbor, he talked about depreciation and stuff. So obviously, if you were going to put new homes, I would actually probably appreciate, I think, the value of the house, because these new homes are being constructed at way higher costs. Obviously, it would bring the value of the homes up, but this would create, I don't agree with what you guys say. It would, be a depreciation in our value. I
has
don't.
it has not happened. You could say it. I also hear the same thing when people say when there's rentals next door. Actually, in the neighborhoods where there are rentals, property values have increased faster than in some of the other neighborhoods. So there's this belief that it's depreciates. The data doesn't back it up.
You guys did touch on the whole drainage thing. So Brian mentioned like about 10 years ago, maybe 12 years ago, I had a ponding in front of my house. I had the New York State DOT involved. They had to
Probably
do it-
Monroe County.
Monroe County DOT, I apologize, yes. It was a pretty big project. It took them 3-4 months to do that whole road down there, but they started from up the road down, and we're talking about putting a swale and a berm and everything, but they realize a lot of the water comes from the farm back. So I am concerned about anything being, creating more water, because that was a big problem there for a while. So I am really concerned about drainage to our houses, with this project.
So again, that's going to be part of the job of the planning board, is to make sure that that is not the case. And that it actually is less water coming towards your house.
Can you show me on here where your house is? Just so I have a reference. This one, okay, so right next to his.
Tony, did you say 590?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so my other concern was, you guys already talked about the setback from the other homes there. So, I don't understand why I know that those properties to the east had a little bit more of a bigger backyard there. So,
Yep.
Again, you guys already talked about it. I'm concerned about how close it was to the property line. When I was first hearing about it, I was hearing it being a little further back. So it's definitely a major concern.
And so, like I said, that's already down there. It will be moving back.
Okay.
So if, they're gonna have to come back with some revisions at the next meeting. So if you want to check those out, or they will also be online. Have you been to henrietta.org/projects?
Yeah, I got it all here.
Yep, okay.
I do have some more questions regarding the drainage and the grade and everything. If you were gonna put a berm, let's say, to create a natural barrier, that would obviously create water disturbance then. Or could you put a berm?
I'm not sure what you mean by water
And-
disturbance.
Well, I'm worried about water being able to drain. If you create like a natural berm, let's say like 10 feet high, so I'm not having a view of this.
You're not gonna build a berm that high. If there's any kind of berm, it's typically only a few feet high. What you'll have is vegetation buffer, not. But again, the idea of the berm is to, if they're gonna have a detention pond, it's to channel that water into the detention pond. I don't know exactly how that's gonna end up. Again, that's not our expertise. That's the job of the planning board. We're just gonna put on that they need to address that issue. And they will, again, there's a gentleman sitting in the back, Mr. Eckert. Developers will tell you, Henrietta is a stickler for drainage. We have shut down numerous projects because they weren't doing their drainage properly, whether it's blowouts, whether it's that they didn't grade according to their plans. It just, 2 projects in the past month had it happen too. We shut them down. One of the projects we shut down twice. So we do stay on top of that. I can only give you my assurances, and that's worth as much as you put value in it, but I can tell you, we do it here, and if Peter Vars was here, he would laughingly say, yes, absolutely. Peter's one of the engineers who works on these developments. We take that very serious because, again, that can have a significant adverse impact on your home. And that's the purpose of this SEEKR State Environmental Quality Review Act. That's the purpose of this process, is to gather those things, to find out, where there are issues so that we can make sure that they don't happen. And again, we put them all as, and you can see I've been taking a bunch of notes. We put them all as conditions on the special use permit, because the advantage of that is, like I said, we don't have to rely on calling New York State DEC, say, hey, they're getting excessive runout. Can you send someone out here? Well, we can't get someone there till next week. We can basically go out there, look at it, say it's in violation, stop work order. You can't do any other work until you fix this issue. For the good developers, that doesn't happen. Unfortunately, not all developers in town are good.
You mentioned, going to the website about, projects like that. So I also saw in your special use permit, you're going to be doing another solar farm on Martin Road.
Correct.
How many more solar farms are being planned, or does Henrietta want to allow in to be developed? I'm just kind of curious.
So again, it's up to the individual property owners. We don't plan any of them. The property owners come to us. So these farmers typically come to us. There's only one that isn't associated with a farm. It's actually the former, if you know, that old golf course that never really opened. It was straddling the thruway. Yeah, Belfry.
Yeah.
The southern parcel, it's landlocked. You can't get to it other than crossing someone else's property. And so they applied through our incentive zoning to put something there. But the other ones are all associated with farms. If you go down East River Road, you have to look for that solar array.
I do agree. I actually drove by it 3 times. I didn't see it, then I
Right.
did. But once you do see it, it's, once you get past the gravel and you get to it, it's quite a view, so obviously being a house within clear view of it, I would like to be minimized as much as possible. That's
Absolutely
obviously
agree.
my biggest concern, as Brian mentioned here too.
Which again goes back to why we wanted to push this further away. We wanted to put in sufficient vegetative screening. We want them to work with you as to what type of screening you would prefer. And again, it has to be reasonable. You can't have them. Again, a 10-foot tall berm isn't gonna cut it.
Well, I don't know.
I
it was just
understand that.
random.
I'm not saying you were asking for that. I'm just using it as an example of one that would not be reasonable.
Okay. Brian did mention this $211,500 bond that you have to be set aside. You mentioned that it does increase for inflation then?
So basically what happens is they submit something. We have a consultant who comes in and reviews. I don't know that we've reviewed that number. That's what they are proposing. But basically, as part of the site plan approval process. We have someone who knows that stuff better than we do. They will look at it and say, yes, this is a reasonable amount. And so they calculate what it's gonna cost to remove it today. And they basically add an escalator and say, okay, out here, this is how much it's gonna cost. So we give them a couple different options. One of them is you can put in a bond at the amount of whatever that final number is. They could put an escrow account that's actually gaining interest. So the idea is that interest is largely keeping up with inflation. They have a couple different options, but yes, it does deal with being able to remove and restore it down the road.
So this person, is gonna review this $211,000 number, and does they think that that 211,000 would someone be able to go back there today and remove 17 acres of electronic waste at $211,000? I find that hard to believe. I feel that's a extremely low number in 2024 here. I feel any contractor would cost a lot more than $211,000 to take out 17 acres of, or 6,636 solar panels. I feel.
Understood. Again, we'll see what the person reviewing it has to say.
Okay, I mean, I guess those are all my questions, concerns. Obviously you guys touched on a lot of them ahead of time already, so.
Okay, thank you for your feedback.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
Anyone else? Becky, is there anyone online?
None with hands raised.
Okay. Okay, so as I mentioned, we're gonna keep the special or the public hearing open. It'll convene at the next meeting, which is the 23rd. And again, we'll expect to see some revised plans to address just at least a couple of the stuff. If you have any questions about my notes or my comments, feel free to email me. But like I said, I would love to see the panels pushed further on the western portion, pushed further to the north, and the road and ponds pushed further to the north, so as to leave more space near those homes, especially the homes that have the shallow backyards.
I did want to mention that the road that is planned now is on an existing farm road, so that's why it's located where it is.
Understood, but that existing farm road doesn't need to have a retention pond and vegetative screening and whole 9 yards, so when I look at that pond is squeezed in there. I get it that might increase your costs a little bit if you're putting in essentially putting down a new road instead of using the existing farm road, but
Well, that detention pond there that looks kind of like an arc shape. That's the one that we're planning on trying to eliminate, so that we can keep the trees that are in that area.
okay, so that's an existing one you're saying?
It's not an existing one. It's on the plans right now, but
Okay.
we're actually considering there's a small wetland. It was redelineated, and there's a small wetland that is to the east of that barn that may actually offer
A better location?
a better location, so that essentially acts as the detention.
Yeah, so if you can move the pond to the north of the road and then put vegetation where the pond is, then you might not have to move the road, but I'd still want to see the panels pushed further back.
Sure.
And then, like I said, the pond would then be north of the road.
Right.
So, yeah, again, there's multiple ways to solve the issues. And ultimately, you're going to be working that out with the planning board, but I want to see, like I said, typically for what I'll call the major things, like where the edge of that array is, we'd like to see that revised before the next meeting in 3 weeks.
Okay, great.
So would you be able to, when can we get that list that you have? I've been taking notes, but I want to make sure I have all of them.
If not tomorrow, then Monday. We're in the middle of collective bargaining and budget season, and
If I can read your notes, you could just take a picture.
I'll try that.
We're actually a little bit on a deadline for the next meeting. so
Understand.
If we want to get a jump on it.
Yep,
That'd be great. Thank you.
so. Yeah, I can definitely send you the picture and we'll see how well you can read my chicken scratch.
Good luck.
Okay, so again, I'm gonna close this session of the public hearing, but I'm gonna keep the public hearing open to be continued on October 23rd. Next up, we have a public hearing for a proposed local law to amend the provisions of Henrietta Town Code, chapters 207 and 209 of the Henrietta Town Code to allow for the charging of administrative fees and expand the means for collection of charges incurred in the correction of violations related to junk storage and abandoned, junked, and unlicensed vehicles. So, under New York State codes, essentially, we're allowed to recapture the cost of that code enforcement. Should we have to do this? Again, it's rare that we have to go this far. Usually we can send them notice of violations and people will eventually take care of it, but some do allow it to slide. Today, we are allowed, our code has in there a provision to recover the administrative fees for mowing. But the code doesn't mention it in the sections on junk, cleaning up properties that are full of junk or cleaning up, removing abandoned, junked, or unlicensed vehicles. So all we're looking to do is just add that same language. It'll actually be the same fees because it's the fee is calculated as an estimation of how much time it takes. But the idea is simple. Rather than have all the taxpayers pay the bills for that department that's enforcing the code, it makes more sense to have the people who are violating the code pay for the time, the employee time it takes to address their issues. So, I don't know, typically there aren't a whole lot of questions about these ones, but if anybody has any questions or any comments.
Just one question, Steve. I just wanted, and I think you hit on it, but I want to double check. So somebody gets a code violation. It's only if we do the work. It's
If we have to do the
not
work, correct.
We're not charging them before the
Nope.
code enforcement to go out there. Oh, you violated. Here's okay. Just want to be clear on that.
Yep. No, this is, if you remember, we had to do it, we had to like remove that tree. There was a zombie home and a tree fell on the building, on the house itself. We had to remove that tree. There was another one, we had to go in and remove a bunch of junk in the yard. It's those ones. It's rare that it happens. But it does happen. And again, it just makes sense for us to recoup those costs, because if you remember what we have to do for these, we have to send out a letter, we have to post a notice at the site, they get a hearing in front of the town board, they come in, we speak at the town board, we then have to go back. So there is a lot of administrative work in order to make that happen.
Yep.
So that's what it's there for.
And this is for residents and businesses.
Correct. It's properties, period.
Properties.
It doesn't make a distinction of the type of property. Any other questions on that? Hearing and seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing for the proposed local law to amend provisions of Henrietta Town Code, chapters 207 and 209. Next up, we have a public hearing for a proposed local law to amend the zoning code of the town of Henrietta to encourage the revitalization of the waterfront revitalization area as set forth in the town's adopted local waterfront revitalization plan via incentive zoning. So what's all that mean? In 2018, we applied for a grant to create a local waterfront revitalization plan. This is through the New York State Department of State. It is a lengthy process, as you can tell, because it's still going on. We finished our portion long ago. New York State has taken forever to finish their portion. And one of the snags we just came up against is they want us to have all of the legislative measures in place before they'll approve our plan. The challenge with that is some of the provisions, we don't know that we're ever going to do it. Because when they talked to us about the plan, they encouraged us to put in potential projects, not just ones that we were definitely going to do, but ones that we might do. And so fortunately, since we first went for that application, the town board, as part of the comprehensive update to the comprehensive land use plan, we put in incentive zoning. And so incentive zoning is the idea we can't force businesses to do certain things or property owners to do certain things, but you can incent them. So the idea is, there's some community benefit we want. So for instance, better access to the waterfront, cleaning up of the waterfront, maybe like stabilization of the shoreline, things like that. In exchange for, they get incentives like reduced setbacks, higher densities, complementary uses, things like that. And so the idea, by creating this incentive zone specifically for local waterfront revitalization, we will meet all the requirements of New York State. We'll finally get our LWRP plan approved, and we'll actually start to be able to do some of the projects. I will tell you, this is one of the most frustrating things that I've found since taking office 6 years ago, is this, I can't use the word speed, the rate at which Albany moves. It makes snails look fast. So I will just be so glad to be done with this process. It has been painstakingly slow. With that said, any questions, comments? All right.
Looking forward to the project.
Yeah. So for those who aren't aware, we are starting our first LWRP project. We just can't do anything with it other than initial planning until the LWRP plan is approved. But we're looking to build a canal side park on the canal. The Erie Canal does come through the northeast corner of Henrietta. And so it would actually have some street of shops, a canal side park, a pier where boats can pull up, pavilions where people could sit and have picnic lunches, whether buying food at the restaurants and the shops or just even bringing their own food. It'll be right on the towpath. So again, that's something we're interested in going and pursuing funding for. We can't do that until this plan is in place, so I can't wait. Hearing and seeing no further comments, then I'm going to close the public hearing for the proposed local law to amend zoning code to encourage revitalization of the waterfront. That completes our public hearings. Can I get my first official resolution? Oh, I guess it's me. How did they do that to me?
They got you again.
Wait, let's find it here.
It's you or him? That is him.
Hold on.
No, is it me?
No?
No, it's me.
Let me take it.
I should have opened this earlier.
Hey, Steve.
What's that?
He's 5 minutes.
He wants 5 minutes.
Yeah, he wants to take a.
Okay, old man.
Okay.
Anyone object to us taking a 5-minute break?
Not at all.
Okay. We will reconvene in 5 minutes. Which usually means closer to 10, but go ahead.
Steve? I'll set my timer.
I don't think we've got time to do that now, yeah.
But isn't,
That's Can you hear us, Becky?
I can hear you.
All right, we're ready. All right, welcome back. So I'm gonna switch resolutions with,
Oh, hang on, just one moment. I think I have to reset the camera. I don't think Craig is standing right there.
Craig's doing a double take right now.
yeah, we've got the interpreter. That's all we need.
That's for sure.
Yeah, you're posing, Craig. I don't know.
He's not sure he's doing the right thing. What you should do is stand right there so she can't tell that you fixed it.
I don't know. I think you were showing off your biceps there.
I'll wait. You don't have to run.
You're gonna read this in a second, right?
Yep. And then I'll have you do the 292.
All right, now we are ready.
Okay. So I'm not going to do a summary. I'm just going to read the whole resolution and I will type this up and get it to you. Fellow board members, I have resolution 20-291, 2024. Whereas Durham Realty LLC, the applicant has applied for a special use permit, application number 2024-033 under Henrietta Town Code 295-14B13 as amended by local law 4 of 2024 to allow the cannabis microbusiness Rock Dispensary and Hydroponics LLC to store harvest plants at the location of the retail dispensary, the application, in conjunction with the retail cannabis dispensary, Rock Dispensary, already approved for the property via special use permit number SP 2023-039, approved by Town Board Resolution 25-405, 2023 on December 6th, 2023 in a commercial B1 zone district with a mixed-use redevelopment area overlay district at 324 Jefferson Road, Rochester, New York, 14623. The property, or as more particularly described in plans on file in the town clerk's office. And whereas the property meets the requirements of 295-14B13 as having street frontage to Jefferson Road and being located between John Street and Winton Road. Whereas the property does not have a church, school, park, or property whose primary business is directed towards minors, located within the 1,000-foot buffer as part of the additional special use permit requirements detailed in section 295-54.1B2. And whereas a public hearing was duly advertised and held relative to the same on October 3rd, 2024 at 6 p.m. And whereas the town board has carefully considered all information relative to the application, including but not limited to the application, correspondence and oral testimony from the public, and correspondence and oral testimony from the applicant. And whereas the town has referred the application to the Monroe County Planning Board pursuant to New York General Municipal Law, Section 239, and the town has incorporated any comments and feedback from Monroe County Planning Board. And whereas the town board has considered each of the factors for assessing the requested special use permit approval, all is set forth in Town Code Section 295-54. Therefore, be it resolved that in consideration the special use permit factors, including in considering all information based on the record, including feedback from Monroe County Planning Board and other interested or involved county or state agencies, public comments, those reasons discussed at the public meeting related to the same, and all materials submitted related to such application, and based upon applicable law and in consideration of any conditions set forth herein, the Henrietta Town Board finds that the special use permit factors support approval of the application pursuant to the applicant obtaining final approvals from the Office of Cannabis Management. Be it further resolved that based on the aforementioned, the town board hereby grants approval for the application to store plants on the property in conjunction with the cannabis microbusiness and a cannabis adult use retail dispensary, subject to the following conditions. Prior to storing plants on the property, the applicant must obtain all necessary government approvals to operate said cannabis microbusiness. I'm sorry, and retail dispensary, including an updated license from the New York State Office of Cannabis Management. 2, the dispensary and microbusiness shall be operated with all applicable laws, rules, and regulations. 3, that all cannabis sales activities shall take place within the interior of the building. No cultivation or sales may occur outside, under tents, or under a portico or similar physical structure. 4, that on-site consumption of cannabis products, either in-store or on-site, such as in the parking lot or adjacent areas, is prohibited, and that diligence is expected from the operation to prevent this from occurring. The failure to prohibit and/or a lax attitude towards those improperly consuming cannabis products in-store or on-site could result in the revocation of the special use permit by the town board. 5, that the operation exercises diligence with respect to childproof containers, packaging that does not entice children, buyer identification procedures, monitoring the facility inside and out, the use of a safe and other cash handling protocols, and other procedures and protocols to ensure the legal sale of cannabis products and to help prevent the cannabis products from falling into the hands of minors. The failure to maintain adequate safeguards or a material departure from what was presented to the town board during the application process could result in the revocation of the special use permit by the town board. 6, the operation cannot have you cannot have retail operations between the hours of 10 p.m. and 8 a.m. 7, no cultivation or processing shall take place on the property. 8, that the operation installs proper odor containment equipment and practices so as to eliminate or minimize odors leaving the microbusiness, as can happen. Hold on a second. I'm going to insert something here.
Okay.
Okay, let's try this again. Number 8, that the operation installs proper odor containment equipment as needed and so as to eliminate or minimize odors leaving the storage area. The failure to maintain adequate safeguards against odor containment or material departure from what was presented to the town board during the application process could result in the revocation of the special use permit by the town board. That's it.
Second.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
Okay.
He stole it.
You got 292, right?
So do you understand all those? Do those make sense? All right. Any other questions, comments? Did I miss anything?
I think you covered it, Steve.
Okay. All right. Okay. Then hearing no further questions or comments, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Blanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor, I have resolution number 20-292/2024 to approve and or ratify the following agreements.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Blanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, resolution number 20-293-2024 to authorize bills payable and any associated contracts or agreements for September 18th, 2024 through today, October 3rd, 2024.
Second.
Linda, if you're on, is the large number, is that a payment to the school district for tax collection?
It is not. I'm not Linda, but I can confirm that it is not.
What's it related to? I'm just curious. It seems higher than normal.
It is for the, sorry, I had to unmute. It's, for some of the, Lehigh Station sewer work.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Any other questions, comments? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution 20-294, 2024. To declare intent to be the lead agency for coordinated seeker review and call for a public hearing for a proposed large-scale solar project for Martin Henrietta Solar LLC located on Martin Road.
Seconded.
Yeah, I will note, I don't like their naming conventions.
Yes.
They basically take the name of the road, the name of the town, and just slap them together.
Wow.
So as mentioned, this is a large property. It's on the Howlett Farms, east of the East River Road. One of the things that they've agreed to do is we need to get to the back of that property to deal with some stormwater systems that help drain the houses along East River Road. And so they have agreed to move the fence or the road outside the fence with extra gates so that we can use that road to get back there with our equipment to do the drainage. So, I will say that I love working with Bruce because he understands that the town has stuff it has to do and sometimes needs assistance from the developer. So he's great to work with. Any other questions, comments? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution 20-295, 2024 to approve the settlement agreement between the town and Jason Arfman regarding a zoning violation at 144 Faircrest Road.
Second.
So I will note that I shared this with the zoning board of appeals because this case did go in front of them, and they, from a law standpoint, they had to uphold it. From a personal standpoint, it crushed them to do so because this is this individual's income. So very glad that our attorney, Dan Mastrella, and Mr. Arthman's attorney were able to work out an agreement that will allow them to, he's looking to move to a location where that the dog boarding is an allowed use. And so he's, this gives him time to get that done and then prevents the potential lengthy and costly lawsuit that would cost both us and the property owner money. So it's a great solution all around, while still maintaining the law. So, again, thank you to everyone who worked on it. And any other comments?
I can just say I was at the zoning board meeting where this was heard. It was obviously, the board members were, quite split on this, and at yesterday's meeting when they were told that there was a settlement, the zoning board members were very happy with it. came up with a solution.
It's great job, Dan, on
Thank you, Dan.
getting that done.
Any other questions, comments? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution number 20-296, 2024, to commit to in-kind and out-of-pocket expense obligations for low-cap grant funding for the installation of a signalized crosswalk on Clay Road near Strassenberg Drive.
Second. So I would like to thank Senator Cooney for his support in getting this done. We basically have some individuals with visual impairments, and it's getting dangerous for them to cross the roads. We did not have this in our budget, and he was able to get the local community assistance program or low cap grant for us to get this done. So it's great having good partners in Albany.
And what a great thing he did for people that are having a hard time seeing and are blind to get across the street. It's very good.
Any further comments? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Fellow board members, I have resolution 20-297, 2024. To accept the dedication of sanitary and storm sewer systems for the preserve section 10.
Seconded.
Any questions or comments? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution number 20-298/2024 to accept the dedication of roadways for Queens Park subdivision sections 2A and 2B.
Second.
So I'd like to thank the team that got this done. I've been hearing from residents how happy they are that it's finally done. Residents were miserable at the condition of the road. It was a significant effort from our engineering team, Chris Martin and Lucas Bushin, from Superintendent of Highways, Craig Barber, Deputy Town Supervisor, Greg Eckert, our town attorney, Dan Mastrella. We basically, lots of meetings, lots of work. Also, I should also say our construction inspectors, Steve McIntyre, and some that we hire from outside. We basically had to stay on top of them, make sure it got done right. It's done right. The road's in great shape now and should last for a good long time. And the people's properties are cleaned up. It's a shame it took as long as it did, but I'm glad that we were finally able to get this across the finish line. Any questions, comments?
Just good job to the whole team. That's important.
And hearing and seeing nothing further, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution 20-299, 2024. To authorize the supervisor to sign a grant approval agreement for $125,000 of CEC funding from New York State Environmental Research and Development Agency. And to use $69,603 of that funding to purchase an electric greens mower.
Second.
So these are funds that we achieved through the Clean Energy Community Program. They can only be used on certain things, and we were shocked at not only the very narrow scope of where they could be used, but also the difficulty in the process of actually getting the money that we had earned. Fortunately, one of the things we could use was for electric vehicles, and that included mowing equipment. And the reason it's critical, two reasons. The mower that we purchased cheap from the previous operator is on its last legs. But the other thing is, when you're maintaining a golf course, greens mowing has to be done first thing in the morning. An electric greens mower is a lot quieter than gas greens mowers, and since there are now homes going in next to the golf course, that will make a difference. So, and then I was just at an electric vehicle show. There was a lot of people asking about, are we going to be getting additional EV chargers at our facilities? And the answer is yes, and this is how we're paying for it. So we're also pursuing some other potential grants to get additional monies. There was another additional $10,000 through the CEC. That one we didn't have to jump through all kinds of hoops to get that funding. So the total will actually eventually, when that comes in, will be 135,000. But a lot of work. Deputy Town Supervisor Craig Eckerts has been the one jumping through most of those hoops and hurdles that they've been doing. And yes, he had a few twitches as part of the process, but
He's a hard worker, though.
glad to see it's finally coming through. We expect to have the agreement in a week or two. We'll get that signed, and we've already put in the or notified them that the order is coming. And they aren't requiring a deposit, but we did check if we needed to. NYSERDA would allow us to do a deposit before the contract is signed. But so hopefully that mower will be coming in soon. One other note I will just make on EV chargers in case anybody asks. When we put these in, we do not make the electricity free because I don't, and I think my fellow board members share this belief. It's not fair to use taxpayer dollars to pay for somebody's electricity for their private car. But we do use the NYSERDA funds to install these. If NYSERDA funds are specifically, that's funded from a tax on fossil fuels, specifically to encourage alternative fuels. So it's a very appropriate use for it. But like I said, we basically pass the electrical charges through to the owners of the vehicles because we don't believe it's appropriate to be using tax dollars for someone's private vehicle. So someone asked that question. So that's why I just wanted to answer it, because I got that question the past week.
Deputy Supervisor, was the Sustainability Board informed that we were getting this yet?
Oh, they've been part of it, and
Yes,
they've helped
I
us
know.
write stuff, yeah.
I know they talked about it. I
Yeah.
just didn't know if they were informed that we were actually there.
So,
Well, very good job by everybody involved, and Craig, thanks for your leadership.
Do any of those grants include anything with hydrogen? You know,
oh, no.
okay.
Um,
Because I know they could make, they have engines now that can run
correct.
raw off hydrogen, and we got
Plug Power right
plug
here.
power
Plug
is
Power,
right in
yeah.
our corner, and
Yeah.
I've been so I'd like to see if they could come up with something. Thank you.
Yep. Any further questions, comments? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution 20-300, 2024, to reappoint James Riddell to the Board of Assessment Review and to appoint Valerie Johnson as a temporary member of the Board of Assessment Review.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution number 20-301, 2024, to authorize the installation of traffic control signs on Brighton Henrietta Town Line Road as requested by the Monroe County Department of Transportation.
Second. So for those who haven't seen it, they've reworked Town Line Road in a number of areas. It's gone on a road diet, so from 4 lanes down to 2, well, actually 3, there's a center turn lane. This was largely being driven by the town of Brighton, even though it's a shared road. No, we're not completely happy with the design because in a couple areas it widens back out and the bike lanes just disappear. But it's a county road and ultimately they have the authority. With that said, we want to make sure that the signs are in place so that there aren't vehicles driving in the bike lane or parking where they shouldn't be parking. So obviously our resolution covers the signs on our side of the road and Brighton will be passing resolution for the signs on their side of the road.
Oh,
By passing that, it allows, the signs would be there anyway. By passing them, this resolution, it allows the law enforcement agencies to issue tickets.
oh, okay. Had no idea.
Yep. Any further questions or comments? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Fellow board members, I have resolution 20-302, 2024, to declare items surplus materials from the highway and sewer departments and consigned to the Teetsworth Municipal Auction.
Seconded.
Any questions or comments? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution number 20-303, 2024, to authorize the allocation of CHIPS funding for the purchase of a previously approved 6-wheel dump/plow truck and use the highway funds for the purchase of a new 6-wheeled dump/plow truck for the highway department.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Hearing and seeing none. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution 20-304, 2024. To call for a public hearing on the fiscal year 2025 preliminary budget.
Seconded.
So it's budget season. One of the things I'll note, as I said in one of the town newsletter articles, we're not done rolling this all up, but I will be shocked if we're able to not raise taxes. Health insurance went up 16%. Retirement is going up 17.5%. Payroll is going up 8.4%. Insurance is going up 10%. We haven't even gotten into material costs and other such. So we're doing as much as we can to keep any increases down, but with those kinds of increases, I'll be shocked if we're able to hold the levy flat. So, but we'll know soon. We have a meeting next week to go over the whole budget and roll it all up, and then it'll be ready for the preliminary budget will be ready for the hearing on the was it 23rd? No, the 9th is when we're
23rd.
meeting, yeah, and then the 17th is when it has to be presented and advertised, and then the 23rd is when it when the hearing itself is.
Lots of work ahead.
Yep.
Supervisor Schultz, that's the tentative budget, not the preliminary.
Tentative.
Oh, the resolution says preliminary.
I did read it correctly.
So basically, we present the tentative budget, and if the public hearing,
Oh.
if we pass it, it becomes preliminary. Is that correct, Linda?
That is correct.
Yeah, in the resolution, it does.
Yeah, it does say
To promote.
promote the tentative budget to a preliminary budget. Yep, sorry. All right. Any other questions, comments? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution 2024. Whereas Abbott Frozen Custard Inc. has donated $600 to the town of Henrietta Parks and Rec Department for sponsorship of the youth soccer and flag football leagues to be used towards the purchase of team t-shirts, and whereas a check has been received of $600 was received by, let's try that again. Whereas a check in the amount of $600 was received by the Director of Finance. Therefore be it resolved that the Henrietta Town Board acknowledges this donation and thanks Abbott Frozen Custard Inc. for their generosity.
Second.
So very appreciative of the donation. It'll be nice for the youth soccer and the youth flag football to have t-shirts, team t-shirts, so. Any other questions, comments? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution number 20-306, 2024, to make appropriate budget transfers and adjustments to the 2024 adopted budget.
Second. Any questions, comments? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Fellow board members, I have resolution 20-307, 2024, to hire personnel, make the attached changes, and approve the union progression increases.
Seconded.
Any questions or comments? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution number 20-308, 2024, to approve the Recreation Center 2025 wage scale, part-time and seasonal employees.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution 20-309, 2024, to adopt a secret determination, issue a negative declaration, and approve a quote from Canabello Construction for the Marketplace Drive Sidewalk Extension Project.
Seconded.
So we had made an agreement with RTS to, they rerouted the, one of the bus routes that used to go up Marketplace Drive past, the plazas there, to instead go across Strassenberg over to Clay Road, so as to drop and pick up employees heading to the call center located there, the T-Mobile call center. So we're gonna run a sidewalk down Marketplace Drive to connect that plaza with the bus stops that are near Walmart, and they are going to build a bus shelter for the pickup side of the bus shelter. So if you don't know, there's a bus stop on either side. One is for dropping off, one is for picking up. Their point is, it doesn't make sense to do it on the drop-off side because people immediately get
Right.
off and leave.
Right.
You want to do it on the pickup side because people are waiting there. Today, they pretty much, they tip over shopping carts and sit on those, so it'll be nice to have some there. So the deal was, they wanted us to build the sidewalk. We said, okay, you build the shelter, and they agreed to that. So
Great.
the good news is that this money, we had a transportation development district created years ago for improvements in the area around Marketplace Mall, Marketplace Drive, Highland Drive. And that had funding left in it. It can only be used for transportation improvements, and those improvements must be within the district, which this is. So this won't come out of any taxpayer pocket. This is from funds that came from developers when they were putting in new businesses in that area. So it'll be a good addition, and our deputy director of engineering and planning, Luke Bushin, has done a lot of work on this and getting it ready so that we can hopefully get this in this fall. Any questions or comments?
That will clean up that area because there's a lot of debris from
Yep.
people sitting, waiting for the bus. It's a great idea.
And so one of the things we did, because there's so many people there and so much garbage there, we put a garbage can out there. When we drive by, if we see it full, we pick it up. If Walmart's out there picking up their shopping carts, they empty it. So we try to stay on top of it. Occasionally you get mad rushes and it overflows, but it's made a huge difference having that out there than from before when it was there. So.
Steve, not that this has anything to do with this particular project, but has there been any discussion with RTS about bringing a bus around to the Marketplace Senior Center?
There is a bus that you're talking about, the senior apartments.
Yeah, the new senior.
Yeah, it does. It should go past there.
I had a resident.
That is their new hub. They may not have altered the routes yet, but it does go nearby.
Okay.
That is one of their major hubs. I'll mention to them.
May have just been this woman is unaware of it.
Yeah, she might not know where the drop-off pickup is, so if nothing else, I'll get that information, and that way we can share it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution 2024 to adopt local law number 9 of 2024 to amend the provisions of the Henrietta Town Code, chapters 207 and 209, to allow for the charging of administration fees and expanding the means for collection of charges incurred in the collection of violations related to junk storage and abandoned junk and unlicensed vehicles.
Second.
So obviously, we had a public hearing. Any further discussions on this? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow town board members, I have resolution number 20-311, 2024 to adopt the 2025 fee schedules.
Second. So in addition to some other changes and updates, and a lot of the stuff is based off of external costs, so those have gone up, but this also includes now the fees for the local law we just passed. Any other questions or comments? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Fellow board members, I have the last resolution, number 20-312, 2024, to adopt local law number 10 of 2024 to amend the zoning code of the town of Henrietta to add a waterfront revitalization incentive zone under Article 9B of Chapter 295.
Seconded.
So, as I said, this should hopefully get the LWRP plan over the finish line. Hallelujah. Any other questions, comments? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Do we have any committee or miscellaneous reports from the board?
You guys can go first.
What?
You got
anything? I will.
Go ahead.
Oh,
Oh,
I get a chance to attend the meeting of the Library Board of Trustees on Tuesday night. Upcoming events at the library include on Saturday, coming up October 5th, there is a voter registration drive being sponsored by the League of Women Voters. That is 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. The fall used book sale runs from Thursday, October 10th to Saturday, October 12th. The community craft swap on Thursday, October 17th at 5 p.m. Drop off of items anytime from October 12th to October 16th. Early voting for the 2024 election begins at the library on Saturday, October 26th. And I wanted to highlight the Tech Tutor program at the library. They are offering 30-minute one-on-one appointments with library staff for things like setting up email accounts, Microsoft functions, navigating a smartphone using Zoom, accessing library tools from different devices, and this is open to everyone, including non-Henrietta residents and people without library cards. There is a sign up on the website, but also as a tech tutor program, you can call the library directly to get an appointment. And as always, there is much more online at hpl.org.
great, thanks.
I attended the last school board meeting, which was business as order. I went to the Betty Miller dedication at the Good Shepherd Hall. And it was very, very well planned and nicely done. It was Steve did a great job speaking at it, introducing and starting the program off, and she was deeply appreciative, to say the
Very,
least.
very moved.
Yeah, I attended the dedication of the Warner Kleeman Field at Rush Henrietta, and the Rush Henrietta Health and Safety Coalition was invited to participate at RIT in a place called The Shed. And when I found The Shed, it's one of the most beautiful buildings you could ever imagine. It was just fantastic. And we met with, I would say, 40 or 50 RIT students that stopped by looking for ways to interact and become community servants or to participate in community events. So we had a really nice time there. Also wanted to let you know that the new irrigation system on the golf course is finally completed. Hundreds of sprinkler heads. I watched that team work all summer long, and the heat and they've just done a great job. Also that for the bunkers on hole 3 and 4 that are grown in and are wet, they clean those out and are putting in drainage and sand and making it even harder to hit your second shot. Charlie doesn't plan on doing the greens this year. What do you call it when you aerate them? Yeah. And
Good.
they've done a wonderful job over there. They've taken the rehab of that golf course to their heart. I mean, it's just unbelievable. The number of trees they've cut, the trimming they've done. And now that the irrigation is finally done, now they can spend their talent on some of the little things and it was always going to be a 2-year project. So
Right.
I've had nothing but good reports from the community. And I think we've done a great job. We make it especially user-friendly for our senior people who use it the most. So thank you.
I will just note that they, the next thing they'll be doing is the restoration of, filling in all the holes, restoring it. They're not gonna put the grass down until the spring because they fully expect there to be some settling over the winter, so then they'll add more dirt and then put the grass down in the spring. I'll also note, just give a shout out in addition to Charlie Ramelt, who's our golf course superintendent. Heather Stewart is, our foreman over there. She does a phenomenal job. And then there's a number of folks, within the DPW and within the golf crew who also, work and help out there and just do, again, an amazing job. Going back to the dedication of the Betty Miller Performing Arts Center. Someone had said to me that it was a great observation that our very first event there was standing room only. Wow. It was wall to wall people. It just shows how many lives Betty Miller has touched. I think County Legislator Udelson was the one who mentioned about It's a Wonderful Life and how many lives that an individual can touch. I want to give a huge shout out to Corey Rivers and Mike Z. I'm not gonna try to pronounce Mike's last name. That as well as other individuals in our maintenance mechanic groups. They did an amazing job essentially converting that from an old church that was not at all handicap accessible to one that's fully accessible. Looks great. If you haven't been there, definitely visit it. It's not quite open to the public yet. We still had a few rooms left to do, but we were able to close those off for the ceremony. So great team there. And then Pam Grunman and her team helped set up the event. And even the sign shop, in a day, we basically said, we're going to have a lot of people who need handicap parking spaces. They came out, they striped the ones that are going to be permanent ones, brought over the temporary signs. We really do have a phenomenal team here in Henrietta, and it's great when they, come together and help out for something like this. Again, Betty was exceedingly touched. She was, it was a great event. She asked for a challenge to restart the community theater. I did ask for volunteers for someone to be a director. We have a director. Okay. What she is not interested in doing, however, is producing. So I'll just say if there's anybody out there who's interested in being a producer of community theater, contact me at supervisor@henrietta.org and I'll connect you with Dodie, who is willing to take on the role of director. So hopefully with this, we can restart the community theater program that ran here for many, many years under Betty Miller.
That's great. Well, I'm sorry I missed that event. That was the football Sunday, wasn't it?
It was.
So standing room only.
Some great dessert.
That's great.
There's some super dessert.
Is that right?
Oh,
Rick, you should have told me ahead of time. I would have been showed up. Well, I didn't make that. And I'm gotta get back over to the golf course now that everything's done. Other than that, I don't have anything else. I'll turn over to Stafford.
Okay, for the fire district, the Board of Commissioners will be holding a public hearing about the 2025 proposed budget. That public hearing will be on the 15th of October at 5:30 on Bailey Road, Fire Station number 4, and that's 850 Bailey Road. So same issues that basically that the town's going through, increase in healthcare costs, increase in labor costs, increase in retirement costs. So, and huge increases in the equipment that they, the fire trucks. And it's amazing that they got to order a fire truck 5 years out to 5 years. So
I will say that I don't anticipate our increase to be at the level of the increase that they proposed. So,
okay. So, So then, the zoning board, I attended the zoning board meeting last night. It was, quite a big agenda. And I think this board might have to talk somewhat about this. There was five applicants with 48 applications. What's that?
Signs.
Yeah, yes. And the issue was more, well, one of the application was from a resident and it was simple setback. One was for a new business that needed one wall sign. There was 46 from organizations that had already installed signs. And I think we need to, when we figure out when we've already approved a fee schedule, I think maybe we should talk about a fee schedule for people who already put them up without a permit. And
Right,
so,
you start to move into fines if it's purely punitive, you'd have to demonstrate that there's extra work involved in order for it to be just a fee. I will note that we have started reworking our sign code because our sign code is way out of date. But it took a back seat during some of this other stuff, especially the collective bargaining,
Right.
budgeting, so probably get picked up again in November-ish timeframe.
well, I was shocked to see that there was,
Yeah.
48 from 3 organizations and they
Well,
basically had
right, but to be
started them.
fair on the 48, one of the issues, this is one of the issues I've had with the sign code, so that, URMC Medical Center, massive, multiple buildings. It is allowed the same number of signs as, a converted, 2,000 square foot home. You could have, 2,000 feet of street frontage. You're allowed the same number of signs as a property that has 30 feet of street frontage. That's broken code. That's why, as a result of that, that's why all these people come in for variances, because the code needs work. So unfortunately, it is a significant undertaking. Again, we're probably about a third of the way through it. I've been working with folks in the Department of Building and Fire Prevention, but it is a lot of work, as well as people on the Zoning Board of Appeals.
I think the on the appeals board, it was more that they were there after the fact. It was not that they had 48 applicants, the applications. It was more that they were there after the fact to get them. So, and then my last thing, not to say anything with the committee, but 2 meetings ago, we talked about the cannabis shops and how many were in, how many were in Henrietta. So I did a little figure in here, went to the cannabis website, and I just looked at on Onondaga County, which is Syracuse, looked at Erie County, which is Buffalo, and looked at Monroe County. So unfortunately, they don't have them broken down by towns. So Henrietta is just listed as Rochester, but they did have them broken down by zip codes. And in Onondaga County, out of 44 zips, 14 of them have cannabis dispensaries. Out of 67 zip codes in Erie County, 30 of them have dispensaries. And out of Monroe County, 62 of the zips have 20 dispensaries. And lo and behold, out of all those zip codes, nine of them in Henrietta are either approved or pending. Far exceed anyone else. The closest one after that is in 14615 of Monroe County, which has 7, and then they drop off significantly. So, somebody brought up how many, like I said, how we seemed to be the hub of it. And by far, if you want one of these lists, I can show you. And at 14623, that covers part of Henrietta and part of Brighton, excuse me. None of them were in Brighton. They were all in Henrietta.
What's 615?
615, I believe, is the city. I'm not in the city.
Is it?
Okay.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Okay. There is no other zip code.
146 is typically city.
Right.
That's the Rochester, start.
Then obviously there is no other cannabis dispensaries in any of the four other zip codes in Henrietta. There's
Right,
no-
because
Right.
there can't be. We
Right,
only
that's
limit
right,
it to
they're
that
all
area.
just,
Yeah.
you know.
Not,
We could if we
100%.
wanted to change it.
no, well, I wouldn't want to. No, I was just gonna say that technically there
maybe.
is one at, in West Henrietta, there is that, adult, what do you call it? The industrial limited commercial. There is actually one of those zones in West Henrietta off of, Thruway Park. No.
Right, but no,
That
no,
show world's up, that one is in the 14623.
Right.
But there's no dispensaries.
No
there.
dispensaries
Nope.
there. I'm-
There's nothing in that district. It's,
Right, it's, so yeah, it's obviously, we have a lot more than most.
And we limited it to a pretty short,
right.
pretty small.
But the thing is, we have a strong retail presence, so we just had, the folks, was it, I think it was EDR, there were some folks in town for some, major thing, and they were marveling over how Henrietta has the shopping mecca, everything you could possibly want, and they were like, you go a little bit south, and it's all residential, and you go a little bit further south and it turns rural. So they were very impressed with the town. I know we often get criticized for Jefferson Road and West Henrietta Road. But I'll tell you, it's all that business that keeps, that's why our tax rate was under $1 per thousand. In addition to the work by the town to keep costs down, but it's that huge tax base that that makes a difference, so. And again, we're getting a lot of revenue from the sale of cannabis. Either way, cannabis will be here. We might as well get the revenue for it.
Yep, they were just, I mean, they just
Yeah.
brought up the saturation in the
Yeah.
town, at
Yeah, I
2
do
meetings
think,
ago.
it'll be interesting because I'll be curious if any of them,
I think so.
I'll be curious if any of them cannibalize each other, that at some point, there will be a business threshold that some of them won't survive. Right.
That doesn't count for the illegal ones.
Yeah.
These are the,
So, yeah, and I hope, again, there has been some additional prosecutions of some of the illegal ones. They still aren't going as fast as I wish they would. And I wish they would just shut some of those ones down. But we're working on it.
I just can't understand how they can't go after them for tax evasion. I mean, we're losing a ton of money in taxes on that, on those ones. And it's unfair to the people who are living by the rules.
I agree. I don't get it, but anyway. Are there any comments from the public? Then hearing and seeing none, can I get a motion? Oh, actually, I take it back. I'm gonna make a motion. It's unplanned because we had I'd forgotten to put it on. We just had a collective bargaining session. I want to update the board. So I'm gonna make a motion that we will adjourn to executive session for the matters of discussing collective bargaining. And we will adjourn directly from there, so we will not return to open session.
Second.
Any questions, comments, or objections to us adjourning to executive session? Hearing and seeing none, meeting adjourned to executive.